Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Red Room. This is Heather Carlisle, and I'm excited about a new announcement that I have this evening. Jack has created a new product for me, which allows me to do private practice counseling sessions over my computer, where kind of like Skype, except really high quality, where you can see me, I can see you, and we can have conversations. So he's put me on the cutting edge of technology today so that I can be a marriage counselor or a marriage counselor anywhere in the world, right in my own home office at this computer. So that's my exciting announcement for today, and thank you so much to my husband Jack, who is such a whiz and who does anything to support me. So again, welcome to the Red Room. Tonight I'm going to continue the discussion that we've had about communication, and there are two big areas of communication. Number one, listening, and we covered a lot of that and pretty exhaustively. And then number two, expressing yourself, how you talk. And last time we talked about first understanding and being honest, being sincere with your eye contact, and emotional self-regulation, which is courteous and requires control. So we talked pretty deeply about those last time. And tonight I want to talk about calm disagreement, evaluating versus judging, setting the tone of respect and caring, and those two areas of being accurate, kind, respectful, and successful with expressing yourself in communication in your relationships. So thank you for tuning in. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to type them. You know that it's anonymous. All I can see is the number of the person who types it in, and then I can engage in a conversation with you, which is very enjoyable for me. Okay, so let's talk about calm disagreement when we're expressing ourselves. This is evaluating versus judging. And when we judge, usually what's going on is we're looking at, well, this is better than that, this is bad, this is worse, this is good. But usually the judgment is looking for what's wrong. When we evaluate, that means we're ascribing a value to something. So see the distinction there? And in a certain way, it's a fine distinction, but in communication, it makes a huge difference. So expert communicators understand that their reality and their perceptions are not the only stance. They know that other points of view and different perspectives may be unsettling, but is not necessary to convince the other person to agree with their view merely to convey the alternative idea. They also have the wisdom, expert communicators, they also have the wisdom to offer that disparate views can be enriching and can open the doors to useful awareness and innovation. In other words, learning something that we didn't know, or adding something on to something that we already knew, or being able to walk around and look at the other side of an idea and saying, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, so often in my private practice, I'm working and mentoring, and we're discussing, and I'm teaching, and the comment will be, oh, that makes sense. And my view is, when it makes sense, then we know what to do about it, or we know we can do something about it. Excellent expressors, people who express themselves or speak excellently, accurately, they have the wisdom to offer, the wisdom. And wisdom, you know, is intelligence plus empathy. So put your head together with your heart and you come up with wisdom. They have the wisdom to offer that disparate views different from their own, or views that have different viewpoints, maybe not mine and yours, but people who have different viewpoints, can be enriching, and they can open the doors to useful awareness and innovation. which means, number one, when we disagree. First thing, respect the person's different point of view. Think about what it's like when you can hold that. When you hold your own point of view respectfully and hold the other person's point of view respectfully. It's hard, isn't it? That you want to respect your own view, of course, because you know that it makes perfect sense to you. And then to respect the other person's point of view sometimes feels like you're betraying yourself or your philosophy or your beliefs. And yet to respect that other person's point of view always helps us to learn something, and usually it helps us to communicate better in the language the other person is going to understand or relate to. So, respect the person's different point of view. Be rational, which means intelligent and thoughtful. Drop any of our own judgment or prejudice. And you and I know people who don't even know that they don't do that, where they're seeing through the filter of their prejudice and their judgment and evaluating, knowing that we're not completely heard, not accurately heard. And then, we need to alter what we do when people hear us and listen to us and conceptualize us through their own prejudice or their own judgment or their own filters. So when you're an expert communicator, you want to make sure that you pull down those filters and just get the data. Remember, with rationality, with reason, get the data. Especially when you're in a relationship or when you're with somebody that you really love. At that point, your heart is open and you're vulnerable and you really want to connect. You want agreement with your spouse or the person you love. And when you find they don't agree, notice that unconditional love says, and patience says, and curiosity says, I want to know what you think, which means I'm going to respect that difference and just go with it for a while. So, accept and then describe the differences with equanimity. Equanimity, equal, fair. Talk about, well, I think about this way, and you think about this way. And if we think about a very easy example, some people feel like you should take a shower in the morning before you go to work or get ready for your day. Some people feel like you should take a shower before you get into your clean bed sheets at night. And the world is full of both of them, right? And those differences are probably come upon with what people rationally think is the best way. So then what we want to do is accept and describe the differences. If the differences are fondly held and people don't want to change, especially in a relationship, then it's okay. You take your shower in the morning, I'll take my shower at night, and that's just the way we do things at our house, rather than making it a conflict. I understand that there are differences that aren't that simple. Then offer equal time and attention to the listener. So if you're expressing yourself and you know you're expressing something where the listener is disagreeing you, make sure that you're fair and say, this is what I think, and I think you probably have a different viewpoint from mine, and so I'd like to now hear what your viewpoint is, or I want to know how you would say your side of it. So we want to be fair. And that says, so this concept is around calm disagreement. If we can disagree calmly, then it can become interesting. It's intelligent, it's respectful, and we usually learn. If we're not calm, then we're probably not hearing everything intelligently. We probably have an agenda, and we're probably just trying to sit on ourselves with our own judgment about the disagreement. So there you go, about calm disagreement. And the first time you really enter into that space where you can pull back and not have to deal with any of your own emotional or defensive feelings or thoughts, and just relax and accept the disagreement, and then listen, and then express yourself. But without pushing, without needing the other person to agree with you, just respectfully and reasonably saying, well, this is the way we differ, and I'd like to explore this with you. So calm disagreement. If you think about doing that and expressing yourself that way, the word that I usually hear people use when they get into that calm place and they're really being intelligent, listening and expressing, is powerful. We feel powerful when we're calm, when we're knowledgeable, when we're not trying to push anybody to our side, and we're not feeling like we have to bend to their side either. In the very beginning, expressing yourself calmly, and especially when we're in disagreement. That's the test, isn't it? When there's a little edge or a little disagreement, that's the test, how good we are at communicating. So then the next part is, and this is in expressing yourself, expert communicators, when they're expressing themselves, they can set the tone. And the tone of voice, or the emotional tone, or the attitudinal tone. You know that communication is only 7% of the words. The tone underneath what you say is going to emphasize either good communication or somebody that may start pushing away and feeling defensive. So you can set the tone and set it with respect and caring. Paralinguistics, or vocal intonation, includes rhythm, pitch, intensity, nasality, and slurring. Paralinguistics, or vocal intonation, setting the tone, includes rhythm, pitch, intensity, nasality, and slurring. So if vocal intonation contradicts your words, you're going to be conveying dishonesty, and people will wonder, what they can trust about what you're saying. And sometimes people aren't aware that their tone doesn't match their words, and sometimes people speak in the same tonality all the time. They have a habit of that, and that makes you vulnerable to be misunderstood, misconstrued. Expert communicators know that their associates and loved ones need their trustworthy attention and caring. They don't look for shortcuts. They are thorough, discerning, and patient. They speak accurately and courteously to show their respect. They notice that the people closest to them receive the least openness because of habit, fatigue, or pressures. So when we get tired, we're home, we've spent a lot of energy during the day, and some of us are not that verbal, and yet we've needed to be verbal during the day. You get home and you're tired, and the pressures of whatever it is that you've been handling that day. I've had various spouses over time tell me that once I'm teaching communication about intimate communication for couples, they realize that they do all of these things that we talk about, they do them very well at work or with colleagues, and that where it slips is at home. Naturally, we want to relax at home, and so we relax and sometimes if we're tired, we get a little bit lazy, and then we don't go the extra mile of communicating thoughtfully with the people in our own, close to our heart. So this is a reminder that the people that we love, that are home, that are closest to us, those are the ones that deserve more of our care in communicating than anyone in the world. And so remember that it does take time and attention. And in the beginning, it feels like it takes extra effort. The truth is, once you get into that rhythm, once you get into the habit of being extra sweet, extra soft, extra respectful, extra interested. It becomes a habit with your beloved. So, expert communicators notice that the people sometimes closest to them receive the least openness because of habit, fatigue, or pressures. They imagine how their words will be perceived, which is moving into the other person's shoes and being empathetic. They ask how their ideas are being taken rather than going on and on hoping they're being understood. Now that's another part of expressing ourselves where, and I know I've been guilty of this, I'll express something or communicate something in a certain way, and then just to be sure that I'm expressing myself accurately, I'll express it maybe with different sentence structure, a different example, in a different way, and most people get it the first time. And then if you're expressing it again and again, the person who's listening is experiencing that perhaps you're disrespecting their level of ability to understand you. So be careful when you repeat yourself. And if you have the impulse to repeat yourself, stop and check it out first. Say, did you understand me? I don't want to repeat myself. Does that make sense? Even though you may disagree with me, am I on track and can we go farther? So speak with positive intonation, courtesy, and patience. And when I say that, it sounds like, well, that's extra work, isn't it? And yet, the people we love, the people who are in our hearts are worthy of that extra work. So it's also a habit. It really is. It's a good habit where speak with positive intonation, where your voice is kind and warm and caring and welcoming, with courtesy and with patience. All of us, you and I know, all of us, and I'm guilty of this every once in a while. Oh my gosh, where I get impatient. There's something that's really not when working, I'm getting impatient and getting a little frustrated. And then if I get frustrated and impatient, I get grouchy and crabby. And I don't like to communicate like that ever. And when I do, I end up having to go and apologize to somebody. And I wish that's one of my tests. How seldom do I have to apologize? Sometimes I do. And that's a good thing, to apologize and be forgiven, unless it happens over and over again. And then after a while, an apology isn't enough. Because if you're doing something that's inappropriate or hurtful or disrespectful, sooner or later, you need to show that that respect is enough that you change that behavior. Okay. Here's the next part of expressing ourselves. Now, those of you who are tuning in, ask me a question anytime. I love questions, and I love the questions that I've received over the previous weeks, and some of them have been very difficult, and obviously somebody is in a quandary that's really important to them. So please ask me a question. Anything you want to say. Or chime in with your viewpoint. I love that. Okay, we've got 2 more parts tonight of expert expressing yourself. Not listening, but expressing. The 2 more parts are, number 1, body language, and number 2, invite questions. So when you're expressing yourself, when you're communicating expertly, you want to make sure that you use appropriate body language. Be with your body, reassuring and honest. We've got a comment here. I would love to hear you talk about how one who tends to be a minimizer like me can learn to say more. Ooh, if you're a minimizer, thank you so much. If you're a minimizer, there are always good reasons why, or logical reasons why. So do you have a guesstimation of what it is that makes you be a minimizer? Sometimes it's because you're not very verbal, and you don't just come off the cuff with words like I do, because I'm a natural communicator. Sometimes it's because you're afraid that what you say is going to be misunderstood and the person is going to react negatively. Sometimes it takes a lot of effort for people to express themselves. And so they use the same amount of energy I would, but say less words than I do. Let me see. Give me a clue, dear. Sometimes it's you don't know what to say, or you're not sure what it is. And it's true that sometimes we want to express something, but we're not quite exactly sure what it is or how to put it in words. If you want to be able to say more without minimizing, bottom line, I would say that cushion statements are going to be a gold mine for you. And cushion statements are letting somebody know what you're going to say, why you want to say it, how you want to say it, and in the most positive, kind, and connecting way. I often make assumptions instead of asking for clarification. Now, why would that be? You know, sometimes, and this is not uncommon, we feel rushed when we're communicating. And sometimes that can be because you want to be very respectful of the other person and you don't want to take a long period of time to express yourself. And so you just try and get it and then don't ask for clarification. Or you're wanting to communicate efficiently and effectively and quickly so that they don't have to listen forever. Sometimes making assumptions about what another person is saying because you want to be heard yourself. And so you make an assumption about what they're saying rather than asking for clarification so that you can pop into the expressing role. Or vice versa, if they're listening and you're speaking, you want to pop into being in a listening role so that you can hear more about what they're thinking. Because after all, if we're in the expressive mode, we don't know how somebody's taking what it is that we're saying. Okay, let's see here. Please speak about eye contact. When I speak with my husband, he looks everywhere but at me. Sometimes I say to him, "Look at me when I talk to you." There could be many things underneath that. Now, first of all, that phraseology is probably not going to get you anywhere or very far. It's kind of like this. You look at me when I'm talking to you. It sounds like a command. It sounds like a demand. Rather than saying, you know, honey, when I'm talking and you're not looking at me, it feels like you really don't want to know what I think. Now, notice the tone of voice I'm using. I'm not saying, you never listen to me. And it feels like you don't listen to me because you don't look at me. How come? Okay, so that's a little confrontive, right? So if we use a soft, gentle, interested tone of voice and surround it with cushion statements, like I was starting to show you. You know, honey, I really want to connect with you, and I really have some things to say, and I have a deep need to be understood by you. And when I talk and we don't look at each other, notice I put we don't look at each other, not you're not looking at me. Oops. My phone's still on. Sorry. When we're talking and you don't look at me, it feels like you don't care about what I'm thinking or what I'm wanting to express. And maybe, you know, I do express myself and I take too long and I say it in too many ways. And, you know, maybe that comes across because sometimes I feel frustrated that we don't really connect when I'm talking. What do you think? Is it hard to look at me? Do I make it hard on you? Or are you really better listening without looking in my eyes? I'd just like to know. So, do you get that gist? Look at me when I talk to you is like a command, and it's minimal, and you're not really communicating all the things around what it is maybe you're wanting him to understand or the connection that you want with him. Do you think that I'm on track with you? Let me know. And the person that said, I often make assumptions instead of asking for clarification. Did that make sense? Was that helpful, my comment about why you don't ask for clarification? Sometimes we don't want to ask for clarification because, we're worried that maybe what the person is really trying to say might not be very easy to handle. So I don't know. Yes, on the assumptions explanation. Great, thank you. Okay, are they listening if they aren't looking at you? Is that the way men listen? Not necessarily. Sometimes, yes. Have you ever noticed that sometimes when you're trying to think about something, you kind of look up, well, I'm not sure about that, and you look away? Because if you're engaged with your eyes, there's so much attention in the present, in the facial connection, that if you want to think about something, remember something, kind of like you need to take your eyes away and think about the past. Now that may be it. Sometimes people don't want to look at us because they feel embarrassed or just feel shy, and it's too intense and they don't know how to take that. That's not uncommon. Think about how truly we communicate with our loved ones. Because very often it's more meaningful than other communication, and that means it has more intensity, more value, and therefore if it's miscommunicated, sometimes it's sensitive or hurtful. Not that it means to be hurtful, but that it's a tough thing. And I notice that kind of experience when I do group work, that people are more forthcoming, I think, in group work because the focus is we are communicating, I am facilitating, and making it safe and not judging anybody and really wanting to know what everybody thinks. So they're all looking usually at me rather than each other. And it's not common that we communicate at that level of kind of like being completely open and honest about what we think and feel. And so sometimes it just feels kind of intense or uncomfortable. So it depends on your personalities, it depends on how you ordinarily communicate, and maybe you've had some hurt feelings and they haven't been forgiven. Maybe there's a little defensiveness or grouchiness, or sometimes men are much more sensitive than women. And if they've been hurt by something you said, oftentimes people won't tell you about it. They'll just kind of let it go, except if you've been hurt and you think you're letting it go, it really doesn't work, does it? Because we need to clean it up. And oftentimes we don't communicate that intensely or that honestly and openly because it feels vulnerable and we feel a little shy or doubtful with that. So no, men don't always listen when they're looking away, but some do because it's hard for them. I was talking with somebody recently about, if a guy is focused on the TV and he's watching the sports game and you say, honey, and he says, yes. Honey, did you take the milk to the refrigerator? Yeah. And you know he didn't. And you say, honey, can you look at me, please? Yeah. Can you look at me, please? Yeah. Honey? Yeah. So that men really do mentally focus very strongly, much more than women do, because we have a kind of a global sensitivity. We're multitasking. We've got both halves of our brain working all the time, and guys really do focus. So that's one piece of gender difference in communication styles. Let's see what we got here. Okay, thanks. Cool. I hope that's a piece of it. Now, the different ways between how men and women communicate, there's a lot more than that, of course. And there is no book quite like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. John Gray is such a great guy, and he's a fabulous communicator and has deep insight about men and women and relationships. If you haven't read that book, honest to goodness, and I tell couples, I don't want to read this aloud to you. Get it and read it aloud with each other. It's a fabulous way to begin conversation on meaningful things, reading it aloud, and not like reading it like page to page to page, reading the whole book, but just reading a paragraph or half a page or even 3 sentences usually is thought-provoking and conversation-provoking with a couple. It says, I find it virtually impossible for long to practice my expert listening and expressing skills when the other person doesn't have the same skills. Why? There must be a way. Yes, you're right. Ooh, another person says, I do best with Imago communication, i.e. mirror back what I've said. Yes, if you do that, you've obviously been informing yourself and practicing some of the best things that work with couples. And incidentally, that Imago communication, simplistically, instead of having 2 monologues, it's in a dialogue. And the Imago work that Harville Hendrix has done is brilliant, innovative, and again, it hasn't been bested. So if you want to know about that, get some of Harville Hendrix's books. They're wonderful. He and his wife were here in Dallas recently, and I got to see them in person. And, you know, my admiration was even more encountering them live. So yes, Imago stuff certainly works. Mirroring back what you said, sometimes mirroring back is just checking it out. It doesn't have to be that formal, you know, once you get in your stride of that kind of interaction. Okay, could you say more about the best things that work with couples that you just mentioned? Thanks. Let me go back, though, to I find it virtually impossible to practice my expert listening and expressing skills when the other person doesn't have the same skills. Well, of course, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why when a marriage is having troubles or a couple is having problems communicating, I want them both in my office at the same time. Because I coach and mentor a lot, like I am doing right here. And I want both people to learn the same thing at the same time so they have that mutual language. So that's the best way, of course. And when one person really doesn't want to come in to my office, the truth is we know that if one person learns and changes, it changes the relationship, it changes the whole family. So yes, if it's hard to be expert with your listening and expressing and the other person isn't quite there with you, then set them up to succeed. And just take a piece at a time. Just take a little piece at a time. Set them up to succeed. So, for example, let's say you want to be a better listener. Set it up and describe what you're doing. So let them in on it. Just the way that we do when we're doing great parenting. We let the kids in on this is how we do it. This is how it's going to work. And if it doesn't work this way, then this is what's going to happen, or that's what's going to happen. So we set them up. No tricks, no sabotage, no under the table stuff. Put it all out there openly and honestly and kindly and respectfully. So say, you know, I want to hear more accurately what you want to say to me. So I'm really working on being a better listener. And what I'm going to do is I've figured out that one of the better things is that when you tell me something, I'm going to see if I get it right. So when you said that to me the other day about how worried you were about the money that we need for our vacation, I could tell that you were worried, and I wanted to talk with you about it, but I needed to know more about why you were worried. So I want to be a better listener. Can you tell me the parts of why you're worried? You know, what in terms of, are we going to regain the funds? Are you afraid that maybe we'll overspend? Or maybe it's really not in our budget given what else we need to do? Okay. So did you see how that illustration was me as a spouse saying, I want to listen better and I am going to elicit from you. I want to hear you and hear the things. So am I on track with you? Let me know. Does that make sense? So you can create this together. Let's see. Could you say more about the best things that work with couples? Okay. Yes, I kind of talk them through your own process. Exactly, dear. Absolutely. And then you want to turn it the other way around. And if you do it with warmth and love and kindness and courteousness, and really take the time, and take the time when you know there is time and you're not rushed, the other person, bottom line, I mean, really think about it. If somebody wants to know what your opinion is and asks to express, and they want to listen, you feel loved. You really honestly feel honored and loved and respected. And the other way around, if you want to say something and you want them to understand, that you set it up saying, you know, dear, there's something that's really important to me. And I don't want to just dash it off quickly. I want to be very complete with it. I want to make sure that the way I say it is, I'm getting it expressed accurately. So would you tell me if what you think about this? And then you describe something to them and then check it out with them. So do you see, you can create better communication whether you want to express something or whether you want to hear something. We can do it. It really does take, you remember, the tone of voice, the attitude, the facial, the body language. If you come across with kindness and warmth and sincere interest, it's very quote-unquote disarming, where the other person relaxes and they feel cared for. And then, of course, they want to come towards you. Okay. Yes, kind of walk them through your own process. Yep. Wow. Okay, more work. More work for me, but I get it. Yeah, more work for you. And isn't that really and truly the work of love? That really is, bottom line, one of the basic things that we do that answers that admonition, well, you need to work on your marriage. Well, that is the kind of work. It does take time and energy and thoughtfulness. And it feels so good when you do it because you're giving love. And that you're making the other person come closer to you and seeing that they feel loved. That's part of the work that we do to create a great marriage, a great relationship. It's true for our kids too, our parents, whoever it is, friends. Now let's see here. Could you say more about the best thing that worked with couples that you just mentioned? Okay, best thing that worked with couples. There are so many things. And it depends, really and truly, you guys, it depends on your personalities. And that's the first thing that I want to know when I work with a couple in my private practice. I want to know their personality. Some of them, if I know their Enneagram, their Enneatype, I'm going to type that here, and I've done that before, because you need to know my best tool. The Enneagram. And it is online. And you can find the link on my website for just $10 a person. Isn't that cool? So that's me, the Enneagram personality style. It's online, and you can find the link on my website. It's just $10. Takes you about 35 to 45 minutes. It's the thing that I ask couples to do before they come to see me, because it makes me about 70% faster when I'm in my office. Now, if I know that, then there's a whole lot I know I don't even have to pay attention to in terms of helping this couple communicate or solve the problems that they have. So if I have that, I can be much more efficient and accurate and therefore respectful. Because if I can be accurate and know you accurately, it's respectful. I'm not trying to make you something that you're not. So yeah, there are things that work for men and women. And one of the things that's important, I think, is that we know the differences between what makes a man feel loved and what makes a woman feel loved. And if you go to my website, I have a marriage model on my website with all the components that make up a great marriage. And one of the things on that model is, over here, there's one circle. Over here, there's another circle. One is the man, one is the woman, and in between is the heart that is their relationship. And so what a woman needs to know is, what is it that makes a man feel loved? Because it's not what makes us as women feel loved. And then you guys, what you want to know is, what is it that makes a woman feel loved? And they're very different. Now, you know where I get these? From one of our greatest experts that I just mentioned, Dr. John Gray, in all of his work. And it's right there in Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, the front page of the chapter on getting your emotional love needs met. So, answering that question for you in terms of male-female gender needs, do you know what the number one thing on a man's list is in order for him to really feel loved by somebody, by his wife, hopefully? Do you know what that number one thing is? Let me see if somebody knows. Type it in. And then, do you know what the number one thing a woman needs in order to feel loved by her spouse? So, you guys know, or take a guess. Take a guess. Words of admiration with men. Oh, you're close, dear. You're really close. That would be number 2. Dang. Number 2 is admiration. And the other things that men need are kind of in that category. And you know, for me as a woman, men are really easy. What they need from me, from us, what Jack needs from me, I find easy to do as a woman. I think men are a lot easier than women are. Okay, sex. Sex? No, sorry. That's one of the love languages in lots of ways, of course. But for him to feel emotionally loved, now, you know, sex also makes a man feel spiritually connected and loved as well. But this is the top of the emotional needs list, right at the get-go for a man to feel loved. It is, okay, I'm going to type it here, you guys, because I don't want you to forget it, okay? He wants to know that you trust him. If you trust him, then your admiration counts, right? Now, I want to tell you something else. It's this simple and this big. But this is what I've gathered, the way guys have expressed it to me, and it's very, very sweet. It's very dear. Trust me. Please know that I'm a good guy. That's it. That trust is, as women, we trust them. And bottom line, if we trust them, we really don't get into big conflicts with them when we give them credit for being a good guy. And you know, he says, I make mistakes. I'm clumsy. I say the wrong things. Sometimes I do the wrong things. And I love you, and I don't know what to do. And that's very often the case because women are difficult and complicated. And he said, please, please, even though I make mistakes, even though I put my foot in my mouth and I do the wrong thing or I say the wrong thing, you know, if she says, honey, does this make me look fat? Well, there's no good answer to that. And a guy will answer it one way or the other, and no matter what he does, he's going to put his foot in his mouth. So he says, please trust that I'm a good guy and I have good intentions. So that's top of the list for our men to feel loved. Please trust me, and please trust that I'm a good guy trying to do the right thing. And then admiration, yes. And of course, that whole other piece that we can say in one word, but it's huge. And you know women who just do not know how to do this for a man. And they're taught not to. Acceptance. He says, please accept me for who I am and don't try to change me. Trust that I'm a good guy, accept me for who I am, and love me as I am. And how often do women marry men thinking they're going to change him, thinking they're going to grow him, thinking that he's going to improve, rather than saying, this is my guy, he's a good guy, and I love him the way he is. Don't change a thing, dear. Now, if he grows, cool, but that's up to him. So that's the guy's part. Now, what's the gal's part? As I said, women are more complicated. What does a woman really need? You guys, what does a woman really need in order to feel loved? Guys and gals, let's see if you get it. Give me some guesses. Because women are more complicated, and a man, that's why men say, oh, you know, women, and they're changing all the time, and we do. Because our consideration has to be all around. We're really in charge of the household. We're in charge of our home domain. We got to watch the kids. We got to make sure we've got the pantry filled. The stores are put in the house, whether it's toilet paper or soup in the pantry. We want to make sure the laundry's done. Things are where you can find them. That it's kind of clean enough and orderly enough, that the kids are getting provided for, all of those things. As women, we want to make sure that our home, our castle, our domain, our nest is properly provisioned and properly tended to. And it's complicated. There's a whole lot of details there. And guys say, oh, details. Women say, yeah, details. You know, I like feathering my nest. Okay. Women want caring. Oh, yes. Yes. Now that's number 2. They need to feel heard and seen. That's number 1. Actually, heard and seen, attention, feel loved. Well, this is how they feel loved. Yes, we all need to feel loved. And the caring behaviors, feeling heard and seen, and that comes under one word, which is understood. As women, we want to be understood, which makes us feel heard and seen. And I don't know about you ladies, but there's something in there about being a woman where I want my man to want to know me, who I am as a person, a human being. And that's about that, what this person typed. I need to feel heard and seen because I need to know that I'm valued by my man or the people in the world. And so if he will listen to me and show me that he sees me and understands me, I feel loved. And that's probably the biggest deal for most of us women. That's how we feel cared for. And I think of it as befriending. We want our guys to befriend us. And when we're best friends with our guys, you know, there's nothing that we don't share with each other. Attention, yes. And, you know, paying attention, again, feeling heard and seen, that's how we get attention. Feeling loved, yep, cared for. The other thing we really want, and you know, that RESPECT, we want respect and we want validation, which means, you know, that thing about when a woman is crying and we're supposed, you know, we need to vent every once in a while just by crying. And I think about it every month. We kind of just need to get the catharsis of letting it go. And that what we want from our guys is to be held, to be listened to be understood, to be heard, to be seen. And that's how we feel loved. And yet our guys, they have this provider-protector role where they're saying, well, oh, she's not happy. Ooh, I got to fix it. I got to do something. Because a guy says, if I'm a good guy and I'm doing a good job as a husband or a beloved, she's going to be happy. And so that's one of the reasons why our guys, you know, we say, well, they try to fix it and I don't want them to fix it. And that's one of the things that we need to teach our men lovingly and clearly. Say, sweetheart, I don't need you to fix anything. And I'm not unhappy because you're not good enough. You're the best husband on the earth for me. I'm unhappy just because I'm a woman and I have deep feelings and I respond to the world. And more than anything, the only fix that you can give me is the fix that nobody else can give me. I need you to hold me. And it'd be really good if you just let me cry and just hold me. That's, you know, that's the biggest thing and the most intimate thing of all life is when my man holds me while I get it out and I cry. And he doesn't feel like he has to fix me. Doesn't feel like it's his responsibility to make me happy. He's just there, strong, understanding, and with me. Now that's also validating. That we're crying, we need empathy. We're validated because they're listening, they're understanding, they're sensitive to us. Any more questions about all that, you guys? We got about 10 minutes left here. This time goes so fast. I just love it with you. Thank you for tuning in with me. The last part of expressing ourselves. So we went over body language, and we want to be reassuring. We want to be honest. People want to know we're sincere. We don't have a hidden agenda there. So that's be sensitive that your facial expression is accurate. If I'm really sad, I don't want to be talking to you like this. Oh, I'm so sad. That hurt my feelings so terribly. And really inside, I'm very angry at you. Have you ever had one of those, what we call a permagrinner? It's quite disconcerting. And there's something feels very wrong. Or if you're saying, well, I really love you. And I really want to spend time with you. And you're really important to me. Both of those are incongruous, incongruent. So we want to be able to be relaxed enough to be sincere in expressing ourselves accurately. Now, we don't want to use body language that's disrespectful or insulting or injurious. You know, that's an insult. Rolling your eyes and doing those body language things that are sarcastic or judgmental or off-putting, that's an insult. And as an adult, I don't do that, not to anybody. It just shows I don't know how to handle myself. So watch your body language. Okay. Last one is invite questions. Now, I don't know about you, but this is one I really had to learn. Part of me says I don't want to invite questions because it's almost like asking for a gift. And is it presumptuous? That's kind of how I see it. But also inviting questions, it's like, okay, am I ready for this question? And now, at this stage of my life, absolutely. And when you guys ask me questions, I love it. And when Jax asks me questions, it's like, oh, I'm right there. So, ask questions. Expert speakers frequently check out what they're saying to test how accurately they're being heard, especially if it's something that you care deeply about. It's like, tell me, does this make sense to you? Am I on track with you? What do you think about that? Or does that make sense? Those kinds of things. They invite questions and they invite feedback. Now, I really don't like the word feedback. Feedback usually says, give me some feedback because, well, maybe you're seeing something wrong. Feedback usually to me has a negative connotation. And that goes right under the category of, and you've heard me talk about this before, constructive criticism. There is no such thing as constructive criticism. Criticism is an insult. It's a complaint. It's a put down. And if there's something that's not working, there is a wise, constructive, and creative way to talk about it. We don't have to criticize. That's an insult. It's a put down. It's a judgment against somebody. So you can tell. So I'm not into constructive criticism. It's old-fashioned. It doesn't work. And feedback, same thing. I would rather have your comments, your observations, your suggestions, your view. So expert expressors, they interview, which means you elicit because you're curious about what the topic is, in terms of the other person's perception or ideas, or how they interpret what you've said or what you've described. Sometimes you want to learn, and because other people have different viewpoints or broadening viewpoints. So expert expressors ask for confirmation that their message is coming across clearly. They take the time to listen periodically rather than going on and on, assuming that they're coming across clearly. Now this is a hard one for some people to learn, especially when you're in a relationship when you've got one person that's very talkative and another person that's very brief with their words. They're not a talkative communicator. Even though they communicate well, it may not be the same intensity, the same speed. And in that case, I try to mirror for people, all right, this person needs a little extra time to communicate, and let's just give them that time. And you may sit there for 2 or 3 minutes quietly, just respecting the way they communicate. The other thing is people who tend to go on and on, even when I'm facilitating a piece of communication that's really touchy and really important in my private practice office, one person will start talking about whatever the problem is, and then it will lead into this part of it and this part of it and this part of it. And then if I ask for the other person's understanding, if they got it, or some sort of mirroring, very often they'll remember maybe the last 2 things, but if there were 3, 5, 6 things before that, they can't retain it. So people who are expert at expressing themselves know that if somebody's really trying to listen to you, they're going to retain a couple of good points, and after that, they're going to forget what you said in the beginning. And that's not disrespectful. It's just really working hard to understand what somebody's saying, especially somebody that talks glibly or easily. So when you express yourself, notice, take care. Don't go on and on. Don't build this whole story if you really want to be heard and understood with what you're expressing. Offer to answer any questions the other person has. Say, does this make sense? Do you think I'm off track? What are your ideas? And then give them some time. Give them some space. You know, the best thing that we give to each other in personal relationships is how I started the Red Room. The very first night that I started the Red Room was talking about the ultimate gift of love. The ultimate gift of love is paying attention. And paying attention requires that we give the one thing that's irreplaceable, time. And so when we're expressing and listening, if we pull back and give the other person time to listen or to express or to answer the question, or we ask them a question, time for that dialogue, that interaction, like that person said earlier, the Harville Hendricks model of instead of 2 monologues, a dialogue. A dialogue usually takes more time, which means if you give more time and you really do assure that there is listening and understanding, expressing and understanding, that it feels loving, it feels respectful, it feels kind. Thank you so much, all of you, for listening in tonight. I really appreciate the company, the questions, and the interest in making our relationships better and improving our communication. So, if you have no other comments, no other questions, I'm going to see you next week on the Red Room, same time, same place. Heather, thank you for your time. I really enjoy listening to you. Oh, thank you. Oh, and it's Kelly B. Oh, thank you so much, guys. Good night from the Red Room, and I'll see you same time next week. Oh, one last thing. Jack has created this new piece of software that allows me to do counseling in this office, just like this, where you not only can see me and hear me like this, but I can see you and hear you as well. So that's on heathercarlisle.com/office. So if you want to have a session with me via our computers like this, where I can see you and you can see me and we can talk back and forth, and it's not Skype, it's this, it's much better quality. My fee is less than it is in my private practice office, because guess what? I don't have to take the time to travel. So thanks to my sweetie for creating Heather's Private Practice Office online. I'm excited. And that's it for the Red Room tonight. Bye, guys. See you next week.